is a Shiur in Eichos. It's called a Chatzi Malacha, not a Chatzi Shiur. You're not only missing in the Shiur, in the Kamos, you're missing in the Etzem Malacha. There's no din of Chatzi Shiur Asur Min HaTorah. Therefore, it's only a Yisur D'Rabbanan. Beila says the Rebbe the same thing by Kshira. By a Kesher She'ena Shel Kayama is also only Asur Midrabanan. If someone makes a Kesher and he doesn't have in mind it should stay La'elam, why isn't it Asur Min HaTorah? He said Chatzi Shiur Asur Min HaTorah. The same thing, because if you're missing in the permanence, if you're missing in the Das She'yishar Kein La'elam, Vertas a Chatzi Malacha. It's not a Chatzi Shiur. You're missing in the Etzem Malacha. And Meila, so this Svara by Akira and Anocha, this says in Achrena. The Rebbe brings it from Achrena. It says another Achrena. The Rebbe is Mechadish, this Svara by Kshira also. That by Kesher, a Kesher, She'ena Shel Kayama, the fact that it's temporary makes it a Chatzi Malacha. So felt in the Etzem Malacha, because together a Malacha of Kshira is a permanent connection. If it's temporary, it's a Chatzi Malacha. The Beila, based on this Chiddush, the Rebbe asks that if so, why is there an Afkamina la'alacha that a Kesher She'ena Shel Kayama is mutter l'tzeirech mitzvah, like it says in the last Mishnah in Shabbos, it's a siyum on Shabbos. And Kira b'lei hanacha is also even l'tzeirech mitzvah, the whole, like the Mefarshim say, the first Mishnah of Shabbos, that says this thing speaks about an ani and an ashir, hoitzi ani as yade, hichnis ani as yade, because to teach me that even when it's a tzedakah, when there's a balabayis and an ani bepashtus, whatever is being carried is something that the balabayis is giving to the ani for tzedakah, even with for the mitzvah tzedakah, still aseh midrabanan akira b'lei anach. So why a kasher she'ena shel kayama was hutur l'tzeirach mitzvah, and Kira b'lei anoch is also even a tzerech mitzvah. And to answer this, the Rabbi says another chiddush. This chiddush says in the Rogatchover, it doesn't seem to say a lot in Achreinim, but the Rabbi says Madiyo, it's a beferish Rambam. In this Sikha, the Rabbi doesn't bring the Rogatchover. I think somewhere else again. The Rabbi says there's two sugim, there's two categories of Isurim D'Rabbanan. When the Rabbanan answered something, they could have answered it because it's Daima L'Malacha, something that's similar to Malacha Deiraisa, so therefore the Rabbanan answered it because it's Daima L'Malacha. Or they answered it because Shama Yaveh L'Dei Malacha. The Yisayit says the Rebbe is a Mefurish Rambam. The Rambam in Perek Chaf Aleph Mihachis Shabbos says, Nemar Bateira Tishbeis Afilu Midvarim She'ena Malacha Chayav Lishbeis Mehem. There's a lot of things that are asur midrabanan. Some things are asur because they're daima l'malachis. And some are asur because you might come l'day malacha. So you see in the Rambam, there's two types of isurim d'Rabbanan. We're going to come back to this chiddush and this, but the Rabbi says based on this, what's going to be an afkamina l'din, says something that's daima l'malacha, so the Rabbanan made it usher because of this similarity, but it's daima l'malacha, they didn't see it such a strong chash that it's yaveh l'dei malacha, therefore they only gave it together of daima l'malacha. Masha'ekin, something that's Shema Yavil De Malacha, that means it's a closer risk. It's a bigger chash. Obviously, Daimim L'Malacha, the Pashtas. Now, someone wanted to argue with me on this, but I think, L'Cheira, and I'll come back to this more, even Daimim L'Malacha, Saf Kal Saf, the Daimim L'Malacha creates a chash if it's similar, so someone might do the Malacha Deiraisa. But it's a further chash. And therefore the Rabbanan answered it only, they considered it Daimim L'Malacha. They said, oh, we consider it with Rabbanan Malacha. Masha'ekin, something that's Shema Yavin De Malacha, it's closer, the risk that from this will come to Malacha Deiraisa. And therefore the issue of the Rabbanan is more Chomer. So the Rebbe says, Akira B'lei Hanacha is Shema Yavin De Malacha. It says Beferish in the Lashon of the Rambam. The Rambam calls it Shema Yavin Mehen Nisr Skila. Mashenkin akesha sheina shel kayama, the Rambam says it's Shema, it's Daima l'malachas akshira. So therefore, a malacha that has dichsha Shema Yavil de malacha is more chamor. They weren't mattered even the tzerich mitzvah. That's why akira b'lei anacha, anacha b'lei akira is also even the tzerich mitzvah. Mashenkin, something that's Daimim l'malacha is a step less, and the tzerich mitzvah they were mattered. Okay, so this Hagdara will come back to, says the Rebbe, Hagufa Kasha. Hagufa Derish Bia is the Lashon in the Sicha. L'cheira Kesha Sheina Shel Kayama also has the risk, if he just leaves it, doesn't untie it, that it achzayin Yavil Dei Malacha. All he has to do is Kilo have a different intent to tie it, to change his intent when he ties it. The Akira B'lei Anacha, in order that you should do a malacha as a result of this, you have to do it ba'ifan acher. Do the Hanacha B'lei Akira, you have to do it ba'ifan acher. Akasha Sheina Shel Kayama, I have to do the same Maisa with a different intent. It seems like a much bigger Chashem Yavil Dei Malacha. So how gufa kasha? Why kasha sheina shel kayama? Did the Rabbanan only put it in the category of daimim l'malacha, and therefore they were matir to tzerich mitzvah masheikin akira b'lei anacha anacha b'lei akira. So to answer this, the Rebbe says l'cheira it's a big chiddush that the Rebbe is machadish, that in order to make something shema yavai lidei malacha. In other words, not just to have the risk, but for the Rabbanan to put it in this category, which is a stricter Isser de Rabbanan, in order to have that Geder, it has to be that he's doing a part of the Malacha. When he's doing a part of the Malacha, even though Minatera it's not Asr, because it's a Chatzi Malacha, like we said, he didn't do the entire Malacha, but a part of the Malacha could be considered Midrabanan, something that's Yavil de Malacha. But someone who's not even doing a part of a malacha, so then it's not kalch, even though it seems like a risk. The Rabbana could only answer it because it's daimon l'malacha, it's a step less. That's the Yisay. The Mela says the Rebbe Akira b'loi hanacha or anacha b'loi Akira, all of them are parts of the malacha. And therefore, even if he didn't do the whole thing, it's shayach, the more chomer dikik zeir of shama yavil de malacha. Mashekin akesha sheina shel kayama, the malacha is a chibur. A true chibur is a permanent chibur. Like you know in Chassidus, Naharis HaMechazvan, and the Rebbe brings that in the Ara of the Sicha, Nahar Shepeiskim Pam Achas L'Sheva Shanim, it does Heistas Lish Mayim Chayim. It's not, Melchatchila not Mayim Chayim. A kasher that's not permanent is not a chibur. It's not Melchatchila chibur. It's not a part of a chibur. So therefore he's not even doing a part of the malacha. The Mela, it can't be in that category of Shema Yavil de Malacha. It could only be the Isser of Daimim L'Malach. That's the Yesod, and with this Yesod, the Rebbe goes back to answer the Diuk and the Siyam of the Mishnayos that he started off at the beginning of the Sikha. So, that's the Nekudah of the Sikha. In order to say this word, so the Rebbe explains, Akira and Anacha is a part of the Malacha. Why is Akira and Anacha a part of the Malacha? He says, because Gidra Shemalacha Zu, Hi Eitzah Eachnasa Mershus L'Shus. What's the malach of Eitzah? Carrying from one rishus to another rishus, and it's koilo kama pratim. To take from one rishus to another rishus, so part of that is I'm taking it out of the first rishus, that's the akira. I'm moving it from the first rishus to the second rishus, to Eitzah, and I'm putting it down in the second rishus, the hanacha. So all of these are parts of the malacha, because all of these are stages in changing it from one rishus to another rishus. In Ha'ara 37, the Rebbe says that in Achreinim you see they're mefalpel a lot, right? What is it? When is Shabbos? In 2 years, right? So you maybe you don't remember this from last time was Shabbos, but in the Achreinim are mefalpel a lot. What's the malacha? Is it the Akira? Is it the Anacha, which is the main part? And like I'll show you, they have rights. So the Rebbe says, so the Rebbe brings 4 efanim. Either the main malacha is the akira, the main malacha is the hanacha, the main malacha is side akira and side anacha, or the main malacha is neither the akira or the anacha, it's the hitzah, and the akira and the anacha are both are both secondary. Says the Rebbe, all those shaklevitarya, Rikala shaklevitarya, who masai nikra beikr shahoitzi sheichnes achayfetz meshus l'shus. The shaklevitarya is what's the main part of the malacha, but not the parts of it are not part of the malacha. L'kulei al-mogeder al-malacha yatzah v'chol prat shel yitzah yakopanim chelek me'amalacha. Means you could have explained in these chakiras of the achreinim that the pshat is maybe the main thing is the hanacha or the hitzah, and the akira is like a tanai, that you're only chayiv if you did an akira. Says the Rebbe, no, it's not like that. Even what the achreinim discusses, what's the main part of the malacha, but there's no shaila that all three, the akira, the hitzah, and the hanacha are all parts of the malacha. That's what the Rebbe says here in Ha'ara 37. So, many achreinim speak about this. And when the Rebbe says "Lafidma de shakul v'tarya shakul v'tara b'achreinim," he doesn't usually mean all the achreinim. Not necessarily is the Rebbe Mesiaches with the later achreinim. The Rebbe means, which here he doesn't. He's not mitzayin to any specific achreinim. So I don't know which ones he means. I'm going to discuss with you some of the rayas that the achreinim bring. That Pashkafir Ishena, some of the rayas seem to be saying that akira or hanacha or certain parts are only a tanai. And we'll see how to fit it in. So, first of all, there's a Gemara in Shabbos, Dav Gimel Amud Aleph. And in the Mishnah in Shabbos it says, if the Ani did the hanacha or the akira, and the Usher did, the Balabayas did the akira or the hanacha, if there's two people and one did the akira and one did the hanacha, the Mishnah has a few different hechetimtzes. In all those cases, Shnayim Pturim. When one person did both the akira and both and the hanacha, then he's chayiv. But if it was done from two people, they're both pater. So the Gemara asks, Shnayim Pturim v'asavida malacha mibeinayu. How could they both be pater? Between the two of them, they did a malacha. The malacha was done. So the Gemara brings a pasuk ba'aseisa, Yachid, Sha'asa chayiv, Shnayim shasu pturim. We learn from a pasuk, if two people did it, they're pater. Comes Teisvis, and Teisvis stellt sich auf dem. What was the kasha of the Gemara? The Gemara had a Gzeiras HaKasav. And if I wouldn't have the Gzeiras HaKasav, but they both didn't do a malacha. The Gemara wanted they should both be chayiv because between the two of them they did a malacha. Zak Teis, you understand the question of Teis? Zak Teisvis. V'loi parich sheyis chayiv harishen, de'ein svara da yidei hasheni she'asa hanacha v'gamar hamalacha yis chayiv harishen. Ela hasheni kaparich sheyis chayiv l'fi shal yadei nigmar hamalacha. So the question of the Gemara is only that the second one should be chayiv because he finished off the malacha. The first one, we never had a havamina to be chayiv. So from here it tastes, this sounds like the main thing is the hanacha. And that's why we had a havamina, that the one who did the hanacha should be chayiv, even though he didn't necessarily do the hitzah or the akira. But from this taisvis is not a strong raya. We could all easily, the Bachreidim bring this raya, we could all easily be deichet this raya. Taisvis is not saying because the hanacha is the malacha and the rest are a tanai. They're all parts of the malacha, but the hanacha is the finish. It's a technical difference. The akira and the itzah is an incomplete malacha, and they're all parts. So we have no kasha from here. In Taisvis, on Daf Tzaddik Gimel, the Gemara discusses, and Tzaddik Gimel is the same sugya of Shnayim Shasu. The Gemara brings, there's 3 psukim. Tilsa miyuti ksivi. It says, Nefesh kisachta ba'aseisa achas mikol mitzvahs Hashem. So Nefesh is Lashon Yachid, ba'aseisa is Lashon Yachid, achas is Lashon Yachid. three words that are all memayet when there's more than one person who did the malacha. Says the Gemara, what are the three miyutim? One is to be memayet if one person did one part of the malacha and the other person did another part of the malacha. The other one is to be memayet if two people did the whole malacha together and each one could have done it by himself, they're pater. They did it together, which is a machlekes. Fine. So the first one is memayet oikra miniach. Zeh yachal v'zeh yachal. It doesn't say which malacha. It just describes the oifen that they did it together. It could have said chad lemiyutei zeh asa chelek me'amalacha v'zeh asa chelek me'amalacha. Chad lemiyutei zeh yachal v'zeh yachal. Right? Or it could have said chad lemiyutei shneim akru v'hinichu b'yachad. In the first miyut, it gives you an example from mitzvah. The second two miyutim, it just tells you the difference of. So you could answer this, but Teisvis stellt sich auf them, and Teisvis says the first meal for Zeh Oiker v'Zeh Miniach, when they each did a part of the malacha, he chaps on, I only need the miyut for Zeh Oiker v'Zeh Miniach, for malacha seitzah. He says, v'zeh kosav ois achas u'bach averi v'kosav ois shniya le'itztrich kra. So by other malachas, by ksiva, if one person wrote a ois and the second person wrote a ois, sounds the same as zeh oiker v'zeh miniach, I don't need a pasuk. Each one did a half a malacha. It seems to be at odds with Teisvis and Daf Gimel. I should still need a pasuk for whoever wrote the second ois, right? Teisvis here is, you have to work to see if you could be miyashna. It seems like two different tastes, two different shittas. Here Teisvis said if a person did a part of the malacha, darfinish kim pasuk. So why do you need a pasuk for zeh oiker v'zeh miniach? Ela ha'itza da'avamina da'achnasa va'itza hu dekapid rachmana v'lechayev afilu b'lei hanach. I would think that ha'itza va'achnasa hu dekapid rachmana, that the one who does the akira or the hanacha could be pater, only one who will be chayev is the ha'itza va'achnasa, which could be either the oiker or the miniach, right? I could be oiker and carry it into the second rishus and someone is miniach, or I could be oiker and someone takes it from me and carries it into the other rishus and does the hanacha. Taisvis says, I need a pasuk because whoever does the akira and the hanacha, they could both be chayev unless they did the itzav achnasa. Why the itzav achnasa? Why itzav achnasa kapit kra? Because the malacha is carrying the akira and the hanacha is a technical thing, like a tanai, seemingly. That seems to be what Teisvis says over here. Because if you say the akira and the hanacha is a chelek of the malacha, then how are you differentiating between zeh oiker v'zeh miniach and zeh kosav v'isachas v'zeh kosav v'isachas? The difference is, well, seemingly, because kosav v'isachas are both parts of the malacha. Mashikin by akira and hanacha, it's not negiyah the akira and hanacha. What's negiyah is the itzav achnasa. So even though there had to be an akira and hanacha, it could be done by someone else, because that's not the ikr, that's not the kapir rachmana. So how are you going to fit in this Teisvis with what it says in the Sicha? This you could l'cheira also for infant.
Which Eifel? This is the fourth Eifel?
What?
Which Eifel? This is the fourth Eifel? What's this? I'll bring this to bring out which Eifel.
Shneim b'teilim l'gabi Shneim tefilin. Because the Teisvis doesn't care if it was the akira or the hanacha. The end, what Teisvis says, Aitzav achnasa, so that means it could be the oiker is chayiv, could be the miniach, not because of the akira or the hanacha, because he happened to do the Aitzav achnasa, that the malacha is Aitzav achnasa. But I could tell you, Teisvis is saying, ahava amina. This is what I would say without the pasuk. L'paya, once the pasuk says, zeh oiker v'zeh miniach is pater, The reason why even Zahikir v'Zaminiach is pater is neschadish and exeris hakasav that even by Yitzah, the Akira and the Anach are Achel Ki HaMalacha. Maybe that gufa is what I learned from the pasuk. Not the pasuk is teaching me. Late tases the pasuk is coming specifically for Hitzah and Achnasa. It's not teaching me a general klal in Hilchas Shabbos of Shnayim Shasu. So the pasuk by Hitzah is coming to be shayla that havamina and to teach me the gather of the malacha that they're both parts of the gather of malacha. What? Einachanami. The Gemara doesn't say here Shnayim Shasu. Shnayim Shasu is the other two cases. The Gemara says Chad L'miyutei Zeh Oiker V'Zeh Miniyah. What? The pasuk says Lashon Yachid because Zeh Oiker V'Zeh Miniyah. There was two. Why? What's it teaching me about two? Because two people. It's about learning. I would think two people are one. That by two people, what they're one is Chayiv whoever did Eitzah V'Achnasa because that's what the Iker Malach is. So that's the pasuk name. The extra word in the pasuk is teaching me a hagdara of Malachas Eitzah. You could say it's a chiddush because just like the other two psukim are teaching me a din klali, it would be mistaber. It's teaching me a din klali. But like Taisu is that even if it was a din klali, it's only teaching me this klali, din klali by Malachas Eitzah. So I could also tell me it's teaching me a hagdara, a din prati in Malachas Eitzah. Then there's a Gemara on Daf Tzadik Aleph. The Gemara says, what? Amr Aleph. Like 2/3 of the way down. The Shiur for Hitzah La'achila. In Hitzah, you had it there. The Rebbe mentioned it in the Sikh and Hilchas Beis Abchira you learned a few days ago. In Eitzah, there's a shear depending on what you're carrying for. If you're carrying la'achila, the shear is kegregris. If you carry less than a gregris la'achila, then it's not a mulach. Haitzi kegregris la'achila. Someone carried a gregris. You picked that and carried. Vitsamka. And the gregris, maybe from the sun or something, it shriveled, so it became less than a gregris, in the middle of him carrying it. V'chazra v'tafcha, and then it blew up again. And he finished carrying it, but in the middle it became ice shear. Mahu, what's the din? Yesh dichoy le'inyan Shabbos, ayin dichoy le'inyan Shabbos. Dichoy, by some mitzvahs we say dichoy, yeah, you had a psachim. Dichoy, that when it became disqualified, usually we say by kachim, if it became disqualified, it can't become qualified again. So by Shabbos, if I would say dichoy linyan Shabbos, I would say that if in the middle of the malacha it became pachis mikashir, it was nitcha, it became disqualified for the malacha, veritas is malacha, it can't become back on malacha. Or no, since it had a share in the beginning and the end, it's good. Why is the Gemara asking only mitzad dichoy? Nachmer, why does the Gemara remain with a shaila? If it became tzamka v'chazra v'tavcha, then maybe I didn't do a malacha b'chlal. If I say the whole malacha is the akira and the hanacha, so the only reason why I could become potter from the tzamka in the middle is mitzad the din of dichoy, right? But if I say the hitzah is part of the malacha, so in between the akira and the hanacha was the hitzah. So then it would have to depend if that tzamka v'chazra v'tavcha, if the hitzah happened between the tzamka and the tavcha or not. The Gemara should be mechalek in that. The Gemara seems to say that any time there was a tzamka v'chazra v'tavcha Between the Akira and the Hanacha, there's always a Shaila, only Mitzadichoi. Is mashma the Hitzah is not part of the Malacha, because if the Hitzah is not part of the Malacha, there shouldn't be a Shaila, it shouldn't be Tali and Dichoi. Right, so here is mashma the Akira and the Hanacha are both Chalokim of the Malacha, but not what's anything in between. So this Raya, the Avdi Nezer deals with. The Avdi Nezer says with a Pshitos that the Gemara is speaking about that the Tzomka v'chazra v'tavcha happened not only after Akira but after the Hitzah, after it passed from one Rishus to the other Rishus. You could say that the Lashon HaGemara is mashma like that. It says, Hoitzi kegregres achila v'tzomka v'chazra v'tavcha. Hoitzi, so the Pashtas Hoitzi means he did the Akira. This was sometime in the middle of the Hitzah. So you'll say Hoitzi is bedafka that he did already the Hitzah, he just didn't do the Hanach. But Akapanim Davnei Nezer learns like that, you could learn like that, and then say from this Gemara is not a Raya. So all these Gemaras we could be miyashiv. There is, however, another shita in the Rishonim. The first, I think it's the first Teitzes Chaim, first or second Siman in Teitzes Chaim. He wants to be medayik from the first Teisvus in Shabbos. The diak in Teisvus in Shabbos is Stadim Lakan or Lakan, but it's clear he brings a shita samiri. There's Rishonim that hold. One of the melachos on Shabbos is Maiver Dalet Amos. What happens if someone did the Akira Rishus HaYachid, he did a Hanacha and a second Rishus HaYachid, in the middle he was Maiver Dalet Amos Rishus HaRabim. No, a different Rishus HaYachid. Does the Akira and the Hanacha have to be in Rishus HaRabim to be Eiver and the Isser of Maiver Dalet Amos Rishus HaRabim? Or could the Akira and the Hanacha be Rishus HaYachid? Because it's not, doesn't matter where. He was Maiver Dalet Amos. So he brings a raya from Teisvus and from the Meiri and from a Gemara in Sukkah by Lulav that by Maiver Dalet Amos, even if the Akira and the Hanacha is in Rishus HaYachid and in the middle he was Maiver, so derech Moshe, by Moshe there's a malacha of Moshe Rishus HaYachid Rishus HaYachid derech Rishus HaRabim, a separate malacha that I pass something through Rishus HaRabim, the Akira and the Hanacha were in Rishus HaYachid, that's a malacha, that's the Kulayam. And Teisvus seems to say that by Maiver also. Teisvus' Lashon is Maiver, unless you're Magi and Teisvus, and the Meiri says that, by Lulav. Which is the Gil, la halacha. Yeah, there's a big discussion. Someone's walking in the street on Shabbos, and he realizes he's carrying something. So what should I do? Do I walk back to the Rishus HaYachid that I came for? Do I put it in Rishus HaRabim and a place that's not Dal Dalet? I didn't do it. Or do I put it down in the Rishus HaYachid that I come to? According to these shittas in the Rishonim, to put it down in the Rishus HaYachid that you come to is not an option, because then it's a malacha. Then it's a complete malacha. The other two ways minimize the malacha. Al Kapanim, this is a shitta in the Rishonim. If I say the Akira and the Hanacha is part of the malacha, so then how could you do the Akira and the Hanacha and Rishus HaYachid and then there's no malacha of Maiver Dalet Amos? The only way to understand this shita is if I say the Akira and the Hanacha is a Tanai. And therefore, if I was Maiver Dalet Amos Rishus HaRabim, as long as there was an Akira v'Hanacha, if there was no Akira and Hanacha done, then you're patur, nishtaki malacha. If there was Akira and Hanacha done, then you're chayiv. It doesn't matter where they are. So how does that fit with what we're saying, that the Akira and the Hanacha are a chelek of the malacha? So this could be answered possibly in two ways. This last right. One way is the Alter Rebbe says Shulchan Aruch and the Alter Rebbe. And Shimon Zayin. The Alter Rebbe paskins clearly that Maiver Dalet Amis B'Shus Harabim, that Kira and Danach have to be in B'Shus Harabim. B'Meila could be that the Rebbe says Likkutei Alma, what the Rebbe says in this Ha'ara, he doesn't mean Likkutei Alma that there's no Deya B'chlal that Akira and Anacha are not a Chelek of the Melach. There's Deyas. There's no svara that you're going to say in Inyan and Torah that you're not going to find a day that says like that. And even what the Rebbe is saying maybe is Lefiha halacha. So it could be the Shittas and Rishonim, but Lefiha halacha, but all the Chakiras and the Rishonim, all the Chakiras and the Achreinim are even lehalacha, because there's nafkaminas lehalacha. But the Rebbe says the Chakiras that are there, they are lehalacha, is only negeya to what's the main malacha, but la halacha for sure are al chelkei malacha, and that's one possibility. Another possibility is what's the reason why the akira and the hanacha are for sure a chelek of the malacha? Because the malacha is, what's the malacha of Eitzah? Changing the rishus of the chayfetz. What's changing the rishus? There's three ingredients. I was oiker from one rishus, so it's not in the rishus that it was in. I brought it over from that rishus to another rishus to be able to, and I was miniach in the second rishus. And that's why they're all chelkei hamalacha, because they're all part of changing it from one rishus to another rishus. So that's together hamalacha. That's dafka by Eitzah Mishus Rishus. By Maiver Dalet Amis B'Shus Harabim, the Malacha isn't changing the Rishus. The Malacha is carrying Dalet Amis in Rishus Harabim. So even if by Eitzah we say that Kira and Anacha for sure a Chelek of the Malacha, by Maiver where the Malacha isn't changing it from Rishus to Rishus, that Kira and Anacha there are taka just a Tanai. And this svara has a yisoid in Sugis and Gemara, but that's already out of this purview. But there's such a chiluk, so maybe what the Rebbe is saying is the Rebbe is saying it by Eitzah. And this raya from Teishus, you see already in Achrein, in this svara, that by Maiver you don't say this. So this is telling another machlekes Rishonim, because it says in some Rishonim, I think the Ran says, that what's the malacha of Maiver Dalet Amis B'Shus Harabim? Because Dalet Amis Shal Adam is Mekoimei Shal Ha'adam. And therefore, when you're Maiver Dalet Amis, you're being Moitzi. Dalet Amis is a Rishusay, and every Moitzi, that's why Dalet Amis shall let them Kainaloi. And therefore, if you're Maiver Dalet Amis, but Chila Dalet Seif, it's a Moitzi Meshus Lashus. So according to the Ran, it should have the same Gedarim as Moitzi Meshus Lashus. But first of all, even the Ran isn't saying that it's Mamash Moitzi Meshus Lashus. And anyways, could be that's not all the Rishonim. So the Rebbe, you see for sure, as I say to say this Chiluk, that's another way to understand this Ha'ara. Maybe other guys have more ways, but that's for this Ha'ara. Now, coming back, just I want to discuss a little bit more the Ikri Yisayid. The Rebbe said that's a big Yisayid in Hilchas Shabbos, that there's two types of Yisurim D'Rabbanan. There's Yisurim that are Daimim L'Malacha, and Yisurim that are Mevil L'Malacha. Kasha Sheina Shakayama, the Yisur is, because even though Minatayra Heistas Nishken Kasha, Midrabbanan Heistas Ya Kasha. Akira b'lei anacha is not a malacha. It's not a hitzah mishus l'shus. It's a partial hitzah. It's just mevi l'dei malacha. The Rebbe in the Sichos is learning that mevi l'dei malacha is more chamer, and it's also even makim mitzvah. Something that's daimim l'malacha, it's less than mevi l'dei malacha. L'cheira, you could also make a nafkamina ba'efen hapchi, and the Rogat Shavar makes such a nafkamina ba'efen hapchi. If it's mevi l'dei malacha, that means even midrabbanan it's not a malacha. It's a iser because of a siyag. It's mevi. It's protection from a malacha. Aber nish ketanke malacha, nish min atayra, nish midrabbanan. Mashaykin, something that's daimim l'malacha. That because of the dimyin l'malacha, the rabbanan say midrabbanan heisas ha-malacha. Midrabanan akasha sheina shel kayom b'heitzas hamalacha. So then it has a shein malacha. Akapanim midrabanan. What's the nafkamina? Rashi holds the din is that a mumra lechalal shabbases is a mumra lechalal terakul. What happens if someone's a mumr to be mechalal Shabbos and dirabanan, and he's a mumr to be mechalal Shabbos with malachas dirabanan? So Rashi holds in Eruvin, it's the same thing. He's a mumr lechalal terakul midrabanan, because midrabanan he's a mumr lechalal Shabbos. So lecheira, because it says derogate shavra, that's lecheira what would come out. This would be a nafkamina ba'efen hapchi. If it's a malacha that's daimim l'malacha that the Rabbanan said it's a malacha, so then you could say midrabanan he's a mechala Shabbos. Hataradim for midrabanan a mechala Shabbos, so midrabanan akapanim he's a mumur l'chala terakula. Mashaykin if it's mevi l'dei malacha, even midrabanan it's not a mechala Shabbos. It's a asu mishmeres l'mishmarti. It's asu siyag l'teira. The Rabbanan are protecting him from being mechala Shabbos. Aber as das getan, viele mit Rabbanan hat nicht mechal Shabbos getan. Getan Chelek von Malach. And even with Rabbanan, he won't be a mumma mechal Shabbos. So you can have an afkamina. On the one hand, Mevil de Malacha has a chumra in the fact that it's Mevil de Malacha. That the Rebbe says they're not matter even with Tzerech Mitzvah. Mitzadacha, the Mevil de Malacha, even though it's chumra, but the chumra is because of what it's Mevil de. But that in itself doesn't have a shem malacha, that doesn't have, maybe according to Rashi, the gather of mumma l'chol ha'terakula. But the Rogat Shover says something else, l'cheira not like the Sich. Maybe that's why the Rebbe doesn't bring this Rogat Shover. The Rogat Shover learns that daimim l'malacha is more chomer in everything. Even b'negiyah to be matter with tzerech mitzvah, he says dafka when it's mevil de malacha de matter with tzerech mitzvah. Mashenkin daimim l'malacha, it's more chomer. It's a malacha. It's a it's a chilul Shabbos midrabanan that you can't be matter even with tzerech mitzvah. So that fits with what he says with his other chilul. The Rebbe could hold of the chilul that the Rogat Shover makes, but be'emes it depends on what you could say in b'negiyah to tzerech mitzvah. So then maybe the malacha is more chomer. B'negiyah to the shame to mumur l'chol ha'terakula, which is totally in the shame chilul Shabbos. So then it's taka the savar of the Rogat Shover could be correct. But this other chiluk that he makes, l'cheira, looks like it's the opposite of the Sicha. He brings a raya from a Gemara, which is also discussed in the Sicha from a Gemara in Eruvin. The Gemara says, in the very end of Eruvin, Rab Shimon says, Shalai hitiru l'cha ela mishum shvus. So the Gemara says what he argues on the Tanakama. The Gemara says Rab Shimon is saying on that it says in the Mishnah, he brings in the Ha'ara and the Sicha b'negiyah to mitzvasei achshavei. It says if the nima, if the string of the kiner in the Beis Hamikdash was torn, you could tie it on Shabbos. Because the kesh sheni shel kayom, you could tie it with tzerich mitzvah. So Rab Shimon says no, only oinva. Because aniva de loy asil de chiyuv chatas sharu le rabban. Kshira de asil de chiyuv chatas le sharu le rabban. So he's learning pshat in the Gemara. So he says from this Gemara Araya that when it's daimim l'malacha, you're not matter even at tzerich mitzvah. Only when it's mevil de malacha, you're matter at tzerich mitzvah. Now, first of all, the pashtus Gemara is fakert. Asil de chiyuv chatas sounds like it's mevil de malacha. Rab Shimon is saying that mevil de malacha is the one that's us or even let's say mitzvah, which is exactly what the Rebbe says in the Sicha. So the Rogat Shover is l'chayra teaching Rab Shimon, teaching the term asil de malacha that means daimim l'malacha. There's a makar to that taich in the Sugi and Shabbos P'turi the Asil Lechi of Chatas. It's according to some Rishayim, but not according to most Rishayim. But the more pashtas a Gemara, it's fakir. This Gemara says exactly what the Rebbe says in the Sikha. If we say Asil de Malacha means that it's Mevil de Chi of Chatas, Shiyavel Deza, and here it says Kshira is Asil de Malacha. The Rebbe in the Sikha said that Kshira is only Asir because it's Daimim Lamalacha. It's not a Kasha. Rav Shimon holds Kshira is Asil de Malacha. It's Mevil de. The Chachamim Taka argue that's part of the Machlekes to Chachamim and Rav Shimon. And L'chayra, that could be the reason why the Rebbe doesn't bring this Gemara B'chlal, as I say for the din, because this Gemara is Rav Shimon, this is not La'alacha, possibly. But Akapanim, what the Ragat Shavar wants to prove in Asil de Malacha, the Pashtas HaGemara, the Asil de Malacha, even in Rav Shimon, the Asil de Malacha is Mevi. Rav Shimon is saying the Vart that the Rebbe says in the Sikha. Elamai, he's learning in Kshira, not the way the Rebbe says, Alibid Alacha, according to the Rebbe.